been getting some complaints about the kind of content that we're showing on this channel. Listen what somebody had to say about our blood-sucking pharaohs in Pittsburgh review. I tried watching this with my young daughter, but the decapitated head frightened her. Okay, fair enough. I'm nothing if not willing to pander to my audience. So today, we're going to be watching something a little more kid-friendly. But don't think that this is going to be good. Oh no. This is quite possibly my least favorite film thus far. Today we'll be watching the crime against humanity known as An Ant's Life.
Weirdflix.
An Ant's Life was made in 1998, if you can believe that. Made as a way to capitalize off of grandmothers who were trying to buy the movie Ants or A Bug's Life, there is little to nothing redeeming about this movie. By now, you've probably noticed the worst part about this movie, the visual.
They look like they were made on a toaster. No, come to think of it, a toaster could make better animation than this.
It's abysmal. It hurts my eyes and it gives me a headache. And now you get to watch it.
Lucky you!
The only thing worse than the animation is the dialogue. Oh, and the music. And the voice actors. So, it's all bad. You see, while the back of the box says 60 minutes, the actual length of the film is about 25 minutes. Where's the rest of the movie? Well, it's made up of public domain cartoons that I will not be reviewing, because they are all much, much better than this. So, after all that, aren't you excited to dive in? Let's begin. Our film starts with a caterpillar sitting on a leaf that he then falls off of, and we're off to a great start already, aren't we? Then, atrocious music that never seems to stop begins to play, and we see the title. Cut to 3 ants who are gliding across the ground? And what's that noise they're making while they're walking? I think I'm a little ill. The 3 ants are sisters called Thang, Rose, and Dee Dee, and don't ask me to tell you which is which. I have no idea, and at the end of the day, does it really matter? They're friends with a caterpillar named Sal, and go to look for him because he wasn't on that leaf. Let's hear what they have to say to each other.
Hey, Sal.
Hi.
Sal, it's pretty dangerous out here. You should wiggle back to the brush.
Can't. Geckos.
Geckos?
Lizards. From Malaysia. They lurk in the shadows.
Wow, what an intriguing conversation. Now I can relate to these characters.
After a stupid conversation about salamanders, the ants go off and are stalked by a flying ant. They meet and introduce themselves by rubbing antennae.
Can I even show this?
After greeting each other, they decide to help the queen find a new hive, because that's how ants work. She breaks off her wings using more uncomfortable animation. Meanwhile, the caterpillar is hiding and is chased down by the salamanders. And look at that fluid animation on that caterpillar movement.
Glorious.
He plays dead, and the geckos talk about how great it is being an invasive species. He runs, and the geckos attempt to grab him, but they're stopped by a praying mantis, which doesn't seem possible. She talks about how she's the top dog around here and threatens them, but she talks using a really sultry tone, and now this movie is making me feel uncomfortable again.
Marriage is a great source of protein.
To make her point, she grabs a gecko's tongue while he struggles.
Hey, that hurt.
Just the furry caterpillars. Got it?
Isn't this thing supposed to be for kids?
Let's check back in with the ants. They found a new nest and are moving in. Has their walking noise driven you insane yet? The queen, named Jo, loves the nest and starts laying eggs.
I'm not touching that one. Insert your own joke here.
The other ants go get food, where they meet back up with Sal, who's worried about the salamanders. Out of nowhere, his face changes to look like he's high, and he starts singing to himself as he spins. He's pupating, but out in the open, like an idiot would.
Get it together, Sal!
The ants tuck him under a rock, and he just keeps singing. Back at the nest, one of the ants overhears the queen saying something evil, talking to the gross eggs which now look like mini caterpillars. She runs off in a scene that rivals that part of Doctor Strange where he goes through all those crazy dimensions. She finds the other ants, and they communicate using antennae again. Great. They have to formulate a plan to stop the evil queen for some reason. Sal hatches, and he's a moth. This is relevant because he now has to lure the salamanders to the anthill so they can eat the evil queen's army. Let's watch. Stunning work, everybody. The queen's army comes up from the hill just as the salamanders arrive, and they are promptly eaten by the salamanders. I mean, they suicide charge towards them. No self-preservation at all. Long story short, the queen gets eaten, the bugs talk about how hard life is, end of story.
Please don't make me watch anything like an ant's life again.
Hello, I am the editor of Weirdflix. And not only am I an editor, but I used to take 2 years of animation class back in high school. So today it's time for a fun little segment called Stuff That the Editor Noticed, in which I rant about how terrible the animation was of this film. Because let's face it, we have 6 minutes of footage so far, and I'm just trying to milk out a little bit more. So, what we know about an ant's life is that there's barely any budget, and so obviously you're gonna have bad quality animation. And yes, animating stuff is hard, I will definitely admit to that. It took me like 2 weeks to animate maybe 10-20 seconds of content, so kudos to the creators of Ant's Life for getting out 25 minutes. I digress, but let's hop into the thing that gave me the most issues, which was whenever the sisters met Josephine. So Josephine is talking to the sisters, and then she kind of has her big self-discovery moment where she just completely snaps her wings off with her little legs. And for the rest of the scene, after she's snapped off her wings, you can still see that her wings are bent. They're not off completely. Until the very, very end of that scene where all 4 of those ants are walking away. Then you see that Josephine doesn't have any wings, and for the rest of the film, if you can call it a film, she doesn't have wings. So are we just supposed to assume that Josephine's wings fell off and they didn't show us that part, or did they just forget to edit that part in? Because for me, that's a huge issue. They should have shown that. You just can't go from a character having wings 1 second and then no wings the next. Even though she bent her wings were still attached. Anyways, I'm sure it's not that deep. It's a really bad kids movie that's a mockbuster, but I digress. Anyways, back to our regularly scheduled programming.
So, this was probably my least favorite thing to watch thus far. It hurt to watch, to listen to, and to have to review. It made my poor editor physically sick. There are no redeeming qualities about this movie, and it is barely watchable even as a joke. As such, I highly encourage you to go out and find this so that you can suffer just as I have. There's basically nothing else to say about this movie other than the fact that the company that made it has made quite a few of these mockbusters that rip off popular films. But that's a story for another day. Come back next week where we'll get back to our regularly scheduled programming. You know, despite the fact that I review horror movies, this is the scariest thing I've seen so far. Thank you for watching, and remember, Weirdflix watches what no one else will.